Have you ever had a moment of panic when maybe someone told you not to use two specific types of crystals together? Or maybe you read somewhere that certain types of crystals just aren't compatible? I'm here to tell you in this video that this just isn't true. And in fact, I'm going to discuss why all crystals are compatible with one another, as well as the one important exception to this. So let's start by talking about energy work. When it comes to energy work, to healing work, we need to kind of reframe and shift our normal perspective about what we think we know about energy. We need to be grounded, yes, of course, and have a foot in the physical realm, a foot in the rational side of the energy work that we're doing. And that is very important. We need to be grounded. But we also need to allow ourselves to be a bit more fluid in our thinking, right? We need to be able to kind of be flexible in our view of what's possible with energy and put one foot in the realm of the mystical. So when we're doing energy work, it's important to have this balance and to kind of accept this, duality that sort of exists. So we need to step outside of our usual way of thinking and have one foot in each world so that we have that flexibility. So, of course, we need to accept the way that energy works in terms of time and space when it comes to operating in our normal day-to-day lives. If we didn't, then we wouldn't show up for an important meeting on time, or we might not, be able to even put one foot in front of the other in terms of our relationship with space. But when we step into the realm of doing healing work, we're opening ourselves up to a different type of energy where we need to be less rigid in our understanding and we need to allow for a little bit of mystery. So, how does this relate to crystal compatibility? Well, when we think about the fact that all crystals have formed together here on this earth, in this universe, then we realize that they must be compatible, right? They're all here together. So ultimately, when I hear someone say that two stones just don't go together, never use those two stones together, never use blue kyanite with citrine, and I'm just making that one up for an example. But it doesn't make much sense to me because if they've both formed here on this earth and we can step into this more fluid and mystical way of thinking about energy in terms of time and space, then what's the difference between being together here on this earth and being together in our homes or in our healing spaces or even in our crystal layouts and crystal grids? It's true, yes, that some stones form on completely opposite sides of the globe and they wouldn't normally be found together. But when we look at the macrocosm of the universe and then the microcosm of our space through a different lens than we're used to, distance no longer really feels like a barrier to energy. And in fact, this is how many people think about how things like distance healing work in the first place. So when we look through this slightly different lens, it feels like all stones must be compatible in one way or another. And truly, since working with crystals largely depends on our intention for using them, for working with them, if our intention is to work with them together harmoniously in a supportive way, then they must be energetically compatible. So that brings me to the one exception to crystal compatibility. So just as our intention can allow us to overcome any potential energetic compatibility issues, which again, I don't really think exist, but say they did, our intention can allow us to overcome that. It can also create issues with compatibility. So what do I mean by this? For example, if you're working with two different stones and you had completely different and conflicting reasons for working with them, then they might not be compatible with one another for the work that you're currently doing. So let's say that you're working with a citrine crystal for energizing. You want, a little bit of spark, a little bit of motivation, a little bit of oomph in your day. Citrine is a great crystal companion for that. But let's say you were also working with a stone like howlite to help create a restful environment that's more supportive of a good night's sleep. And you brought both of these stones into your bedroom and placed them on your bedside table before going to sleep for the night. Well, even if these stones are compatible under other circumstances, again, based on your intention, in this scenario, the intentions that you've set for each stone are in direct conflict. You have one crystal, the citrine, for energizing, and one, the howlite, for resting, right? So in this situation, the crystals aren't necessarily compatible. But that doesn't have to do with the stones themselves or the types of crystals. It has to do with the way in which they're being used. It has to do with the intention behind working with them, and that's what's causing the conflict, not their inherent energies. Even if, yes, citrine is known to be energizing, and yes, howlite is known to promote a restful environment, a calm, tranquil environment for sleep, that doesn't mean that they would always be in conflict, because maybe you're working with that howlite for a restful environment, but your citrine you're working with for boosting self-confidence. That's not really so much in direct conflict as energizing and rest. See what I mean? So if someone tells you that two crystals shouldn't be used together, or that they're definitely not compatible, this may not be accurate depending on how they're being worked with. From my experience, the most important thing you can do anytime you're working with crystals is to just do what feels most natural to you. Be open to your experience, reflect on how it went. And if you find from your own experience that there were two stones that you prefer not to use together, then go with that. But let that be your experience that guides you here, rather than following super strict rules and arbitrary blanket statements about specific stones. I hope this clears up confusion to a really common issue about crystals and their compatibility. This is something I get asked about all the time, and I hope that this has helped clear some things up for you and give you a little bit more guidance when it comes to connecting with your crystals. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Ashley Leavy of the Love and Light School, and until next